What's up guys, 2009 Porsche Cayenne S. I'm going to show you how to do the front pads on this thing. Let's get to it. Okay, you got your wheel off here, and basically this is a fixed caliper. It's not a floating caliper. The pads are supposed to float. It's held on basically by one pin right here. The pin is fastened with one 13mm head bolt. So we can go ahead and take that off. And you also want to take off the top bleeder cap here that holds your wire. And basically, if I can get this off, you want to unplug your connector when you have a second. Connector's right here. Careful, don't break it. And once you undo that connector, we could take both our pads out, and I'll show you how to do that. So I think a little trick to getting these connectors out is you want to pop the tab that holds it in and see if you could just pull it out of the bottom like so. Okay, next you want to take that 13mm bolt out of the way. What I like to do is I like to put 2 or 3 threads in there and then give it a light tap with a hammer, very lightly, not to damage the threads, just to get the pin moving. Alright guys, here's a little bit of a pro tip. Now, this is, I just got it to move that pin, okay, and it's tough and it's pretty tight in the caliper. Now remember, you're dealing with aluminum and steel, so that's why you're getting a bit of a corrosion effect here. But basically the bolt that is in there is pretty short, okay? It's not a very big bolt. Now, the problem with that is you can back it out, hammer it, back it out, hammer it. Well, eventually you run out of threads. So if you get a long bolt like this, you can be able to give it some good smacks with it threaded all the way in and not worrying about damaging any threads on the pin of the caliper. So once you have this long bolt in there, helps to work a little bit back and forth. There is corrosion on both ends of the shoulders here. And that's the beauty of that longer bolt. Alright, now that our pin is in there, our retaining pin is, out of there rather, we can go ahead and take out this clip. Alright, it is got the wire holding on the top part of the clip, and you can go ahead and just sneak that out. Now, customer doesn't want to buy new sensors. Fantastic, fun for me. So what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna do our best to reuse the old one and salvage it without breaking it. So I'm gonna show you my little tip on how to do that. You want to be able to depress the caliper as easy as you can, and you can do that by getting a pry bar between the 2 pads and just trying to open it up like so, just to build a bit of a gap. As you can see, our outer pad has started to come off of the rotor, so that's good, and making some room for us there. Okay, while you're prying, just be careful of the sensor if you're trying to save it too. I highly recommend just putting one on if you can. This now is ready just to come out, so you can tap it from behind gently again, and it should pop out like so. Now, our connector, our sensor rather, not connector, is just pressed in on this in this little groove here. So you want to get a little flat screwdriver and see if you can pop that out. There's one side out. It just goes in that groove here. All right, so we're nice and good on that one. Now let's do the same thing on the other side here. Gotta get it separated away from the rotor to start with. But it's going to be a little tricky because it's going to want to push the other side pistons back in. So what I would recommend is if you could just sneak it out for now, I could show you a tip after. So there we go. The other side's out. Our sensor is not yet triggered on either of them. I mean, one is super close, but we're still good. So we're going to take our sensor out and get our other pads ready to go back in. Okay, so new pad number 1. As you've seen in my other brake videos, I put some lubricant there. You want to make sure your caliper is clean where the pad is going to ride so that there's no trouble. You're going to sit that pad in place. Now, the other side, you have the pistons that are still protruding outwards. You want to go ahead and get your thinner pad, whatever the thinnest pad that you have, and put it back in there if you can. Because what you're going to do is you're going to use the pad to pry back those pistons. Now what I mean by waiting to put this pad in first is because as you pry these back, the hydraulic fluid is going to want to center itself by pushing those ones out. So if you have your new pad in there, you're good to go. We have our other pad prepped, ready for install. Slide that in. And we are ready to rock. Basically, only thing now that we need to do is put our spring, our pressure, I guess, retainer in there. And don't forget we have our sensor to put in still, but we can do that afterwards and I'll show you how. I do recommend at this time getting a wire wheel or something and clean up the shoulders on this pin because that's where it was seized before. Cleaned up on the wire wheel. Don't forget a little bit of lube on this as well so it's easier to come out for you next time if you're the one doing it. And then back in she goes from the outside. Takes a bit of wiggling to line everything up straight, not a big deal. This needs to be rotated a certain way because it is square on the one side. And you can go ahead and tap it if you'd like. There we go, we've sat all the way in. Now, you get your retaining bolt that holds the pin on this side. If you have some Loctite, it doesn't hurt to apply some at this time. Get your 13, which was a 13, but now it's probably a 14 after I smacked it. So get yourselves a 14 now. Tighten that guy up. Don't need to crank it. Then we can go ahead and install our sensor back in here again. Thankfully, like I said, we were able to reuse it. You'll need a little flat screwdriver just to tap it in. One side. Then we can go ahead and slip our sensor up here. I will pop that one back in on the outer pad in a second, or the inner pad rather, in just a second. In the meantime, slip this guy over your bleeder cap. Your bleeder cap has a holder for your wire. It's important to use that. And then you can go ahead and just pop this guy in the bottom like we had just taken out at the beginning. Pretty straightforward. All right, that is how you do front brake pads on this 2009 Porsche Cayenne. Now, if you need rotors, that's a completely different story. You'll need to be physically removing the caliper, which I did not show you in this video. But essentially, all you need to do is take out the caliper mounting bolts. It is a hard line back there, so just be careful not to bend it up too bad. And pop your rotor off. You gotta take this Torx bolt off. That holds it on first. The reason we're not doing this is because most German stuff have really hard rotors. Now that's great for not having to replace your rotors every time you do a brake pad swap, but it also kind of puts a little bit of premature wear on your brake pads. So pros and cons there a little bit, but yeah, on this time we didn't need to do that, so it was just the pads. On the next video I'm going to show you guys is rear brake pads on this same vehicle. Stay tuned, and remember, full throttle or no throttle.